and welcome to another Secret Entourage Academy episode. Today we have the pleasure of having one of our favorite guests back, Luis David, chairman of Illuminati Trust, with us today. He's been very busy at work, very busy doing a lot of things, and we've had the privilege of having him back on the show to talk a little bit about what he's been up to and kind of also kind of take us into the realm of entrepreneurship from a more elevated lens than some of the other guests we have. We're here on a beautiful yacht. And welcome to the show, and we appreciate you being back with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a sincere pleasure.
So let's catch up a little bit. Since last time, been very popular on the show. A lot of people were excited to hear your story and how you've come up from kind of nothing to like this bigger name, especially in the South Florida area. So tell me a little bit about how Illuminati Trust has kind of like evolved. I know you've always included new things in your portfolio and kind of you're always looking for new ventures. So I'm kind of interested since the past year, what are some of the new things that you've been involved in?
Definitely. Really, we focused on three main things, which are one in the insurance vertical, which is VRA insurance, which is geared towards ultra high net worth individuals, where we came up with a company that we wanted to strictly focus on luxury yachts like we see today, private jets, exotic cars, artwork, commercial real estate, all the areas where ultra high net worth individuals would have insurance exposure to. And one of the neat things that we actually innovated was we came up with an iPhone application. Embarrassingly enough, originally it was designed for me personally. And one of the challenges that I had was every 6 months I would get new insurance identification cards for my vehicles. And I would always have to put them in my glove compartment, and they'd be this little piece of paper. And, you know, for the normal person, I guess there's one or two cards, it's no big deal. But when you have maybe an overabundance of vehicles.
Well, overabundance. Give us a number, because I know you're a lifestyle guy. So what are we talking about?
It's over 20, I would say.
Okay, so over 20 cars, and you're having an issue with insurance cards.
I was having difficulties with my insurance company sending me these cards every 6 months, and I'd have like a collection in all my glove compartments, and it was hard to keep track of them. So I talked to my guys that do my iPhone development. I said, guys, there has to be a better way. This is like the 1950s that, you know, every 6 months I get this huge insurance package with all my insurance information. Then I got to cut out with a scissors these ID cards. Then I got to walk to my car, put them in the glove compartment, hope they're the right year, hope they match the right car, so on and so forth. I'm like, there has to be a simpler way of doing this. And they said, well, what if we build an iPhone app? And I was like, well, walk me through it. And they're like, well, what will happen is the insurance company will actually push the ID cards to your phone every 6 months. So for all your vehicles, you'll have the separate identification insurance cards. So whether you have, you know, your Ferrari, your Rolls Royce, your Porsche, whatever it may be, they'll all be located on your phone. So if you ever get pulled over or you ever have to reference it, you can just click on that button and you'll see the most recent up-to-date card. You won't have to worry about the mail. You won't have to worry about cutting them out. You won't have to worry about putting it in your glove compartment. So I thought that was really neat. And we created the application just for me. And then when we started thinking about it, we said, well, listen, you know, there has to be other applications that we could incorporate into this that would be useful to consumers. And one of the ones that we thought was really neat was one example we give is you have like a married couple and it's their anniversary. It might be their 10-year anniversary, and the husband says, hey, sweetheart, you know, I want to get you a beautiful watch, you know, and spend 10, 20,000, whatever it may be. What we did was you could take the application, take a picture of the watch, and then the watch gets transposed onto your insurance policy with the insurance company automatically. So in the event that there's a theft or a loss or anything like that, it's already evidenced just by taking a quick picture and hitting send. So I thought that was pretty neat. So then I said, well, what else could we do? You know, we could do with jewelry, things like that. And then we said, well, what about special items, high-end items that you may have in your home? We have a lot of clients that have $10 million homes, $20 million homes. They may have beautiful artwork on the wall. They may have, you know, custom antiques. They may have special audio-video equipment. And a lot of times what they don't realize is they'll have their homeowner's insurance policy, and it'll cover their home, but it won't cover specific extraordinary purchases. You know, so if you have a $10 million painting or you have an $80,000, you know, stereo system, things like that. So you could take the application, take photographs of those different pieces that you want to make sure that are insured, and you click send, and then they go to the insurance company and they're added to your policy automatically, making things easier. So then we said, okay, you know, that's great for the consumer. Are there any commercial applications that we can use this for? So one of the commercial applications we came up with is a lot of times people go house hunting and they go with their realtor and they'll look at a house, $1 million, $5 million, whatever it may be. And the first question they ask the realtor is, how much is the taxes? And the taxes are
Okay.
generally in Florida 2%. So they'll give them a figure, and then they'll say, well, how much is the insurance? And then the agent will say, well, we'll have to go back to the office. We have to look if it's in a flood zone. We have to look at the geographic map. We have to see where it is. I don't really know. So it becomes a whole process. You have to go back to the office. You have to sometimes get an appraisal. You have to send it in. You have to wait for the insurance person to call you back. They have to talk to the client. They have to ask questions. And it can take an enormous amount of time back and forth. What we did was we empowered the real estate agents with the application where they could take the phone, open the application, take a picture of the house, and then through GPS triangulation, they could send it to us, and then we could give them a rough quote on how much the insurance is going to be in a matter of minutes versus days. And the realtors just flipped out when they saw that. They loved that. They're like, wow, this is incredible. We could tell them exactly, how big the house is. We integrated it with the tax rules and the tax assessment. So we had a lot of the data that we already needed that we were able to pull through the API, put it together, and come up with a quote. So then they can then go to their client saying, listen, the insurance is going to range between $6,000 and $8,000 a month. Here's the person's contact information. I'm going to forward it to you. You just click the button that says click to call. You can talk to them audio on the phone, or you can type in your information, and they can have the quote ready when we get back to the office. So we thought that was really neat.
So that's incredible. One of the things that I think is worth mentioning here is that I remember you telling me that you were in the insurance business before, like you were kind of doing the athletes and the franchises and things like the teams, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're doing that, and now you've kind of expanded this vertical. I remember you also told me you were getting into the exotic kind of racing insurance, with people that were on the track. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the track so people don't crash their cars.
And now you're looking at all these new verticals for kind of like expanding just the insurance side of things, but you're actually using those verticals and going into the technology space.
Yeah.
With the same kind of like
exactly. And truthfully, like I said, it happened by accident. It was just me trying to figure out a way to make it easier to keep track of all these little insurance tags that I had to have for my vehicles. And then, ironically, once we decided to do it with the homes, I got a call from a friend of mine that owns a dealership in Palm Beach. They own a Ferrari dealership. And he said, Lou, one of the biggest challenges we have is we have customers that come in, they want to buy a new Ferrari, and their insurance coverage, whether it's State Farm or Allstate, won't insure the vehicle. Because typically insurance companies will only insure up to $130,000, some up to $150,000. And the cars they sell range from $300,000 all the way up to $500,000. So a lot of times they're trying to close a deal, whether it's by the end of the month or by a certain quota, and the client just doesn't have the resources or the experience to figure out a way to get the right insurance companies to insure their vehicles. So what we did was we took a similar approach to real estate, where they take the phone, they take a snapshot of the person's driver's license, a snapshot of the registration. It then gets pushed to our back office. We then use our back office company that specializes in exotic vehicle insurance, and then we push the quote to them. So then when the client comes back in, the salesperson comes to the client and says, Mr. Smith, we already have a quote available for you. If this is sufficient, all you have to do is sign right here electronically. The insurance will be automatically, updated and put into place, and you can leave and drive off today with the car. Well, that was incredible, because that changed the sales cycle dramatically, where they were waiting 4 or 5 days, sometimes even 2 weeks, to get insurance in place before they could basically consummate the deal with the vehicle. So we've come up with this app that has a lot of different verticals within it that we feel could be useful to different clients, and that's one of the big things we want to roll out in 2015 to help make insurance easier. And another aspect of it.
So hold on, before you kind of go on, you want to make insurance easier. Let's talk, because that's what we talk about in entrepreneurship and innovating.
Right.
So is the app ultimately used as a measure to kind of gain a new client base by facilitating kind of like the insurance process, in cases where, cases where,
making it more simpler
and accessible, right?
Exactly. And we take it to another level where a lot of times people are asked for their insurance and they have to go scrambling. Maybe it's at their office, maybe it's in their home office, it could be in a pile of files, who knows where it is. We have it now on the application that every insurance that you have for every liability is all in one place. So you can click My Insurances, you can see your health insurance, you can see your life insurance, you can see your auto insurance, your boat insurance, your jet ski insurance. All the insurances are consolidated on one location in your app. So if you ever have to access them, you can instantly just pull up our app and everything's right there, rather than scrambling for the pages, scrambling for the deck sheet, trying to find out where your homeowners is. Your bank's calling you for the renewal because they need your insurance. And we've made the whole process simplified and consolidated.
So is the goal to grow revenue through accessing these new verticals, or is the goal to kind of provide an additional tool perhaps to existing
It's both.
members?
It's actually both, and then it's also partnering with other companies and other industries to help facilitate their job easier and make their sales process easier. So if you're the real estate agent or you're the exotic car salesman or even like a yacht salesman, eventually we want to do it for the yachts and boats and planes and things like that. It makes the whole process easier because what we found is ultra high net worth individuals don't want to fool around with the small little pieces. They just want to be able to go in there, purchase what they have a passion for, what they have a connection for, and then have everything ready for them and just sign. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help facilitate the transaction, make it simpler, make it more efficient, and make it that it's a more pleasant overall experience. And then also give companies we partner with a large differentiator to make them distinct in the market. So if you're looking for a house, usually your realtor, like I said, may take a week to get you an insurance quote where we could give it to you instantly. That makes that realtor a step above everyone else in the market.
So dealing with ultra high net worth, but also dealing with insurance, right? Usually most people would say that's the better end of the stick to deal with because obviously people are more careful. You know, the
Right.
accidents are not happening just out of stupidity all the time.
Right.
And it's typically people who have experience driving multiple exotic cars. You know, it's not someone who's buying their first exotic car,
Right.
right? So tell me a little bit about how ultimately the insurance business for someone like you, because I know you kind of started first in one realm and then
Right.
kind of expanded across the board.
Right.
How does that play into kind of like revenue from a company standpoint? Like, is it ultimately one more vertical, or is one significantly higher than the next, and then the other one has to kind of grow itself up to a certain level, or does it start high? You know.
What we found is a lot of our businesses cater to the ultra high net worth individual, and we felt that the more touch points we would have with those individuals to make their life easier, more efficient, and more simplified, the more stickiness we would have with that client. So if that client's flying with us and through our private jet company and they want additional services, whether it's insurance or something else, and we could provide that to them, that makes their life easier. And if their life is easier, they're going to have a higher attrition rate to stay with us rather than go seek someone else or go to another insurance company or go to someone else that could supply a similar service. So we've tried to look at the ultra high net worth spectrum and then said, okay, what are the core services that these clients all need? And insurance happens to be one of them, and it's the big one. They tend to have a tremendous amount of assets and they tend to have a tremendous amount of exposure, liabilities. They travel a lot. They're in different parts of the world, different countries, things like that. And if we could protect them while they do that, and they know they can pick up the phone, whatever the situation is, and come to us, whether they want a new car, they want to insure a new jet, or they want to purchase a boat, they don't want to have to deal with the insurance, and they can just call us. That's where we found we've added a tremendous value to their lifestyle.
So, but that's really interesting because I've been in the concierge business since 2005, and when we think about verticals, we typically think about like, okay, we're doing exotic cars, now let's add in yachts, you know, let's add in
Right.
jets, let's provide further materialistic value, you know, to like what someone needs to attain, right?
Right.
Like because that's what we're pretty much known for. But what you've been able to do is actually go into a realm financially, like the financial realm,
Exactly.
while kind of still providing, you know, using the same client base.
Exactly.
Because obviously people that fly, you know, private, obviously have enough wealth to also kind of need these services.
Exactly.
But a lot of people wouldn't know where to start to kind of expand into the realm of financial. So can you speak a little bit about how you kind of decided to transition from kind of this idea into from providing services to providing insurance? And from a business standpoint, what type of upfront money does it take to kind of launch an insurance agency? You know, in
Right.
kind of the realm of what you've been going
Yeah,
into.
I'll tell you how it started, and it's kind of a microcosm of many of the industries and verticals we've got into. Is it started on accident, believe it or not.
Well, everything starts an accident, isn't it?
I wish I could sit here and take credit and say, oh, I had this unbelievable idea and I executed and I did a perfect job. And it really wasn't the case. Really, what happened was going back a year ago, we had clients flying in from Saudi Arabia to Palm Beach, and they were staying at the Breakers. And there were six highnesses that were flying on the jet. And what happened was they were getting ready to land, and I got a call from the pilot about maybe 45 minutes before they were going to touch down. And they said, listen, we just want to make sure everything's in place for the guests. You know, they all want to make sure that the vehicles are there to take them to the breakers, to the hotel, so on and so forth. And they said they have one request. They want to make sure that they're adamant about that they won't drive in the same cars. They will not share any vehicles. So originally we had, 3 Escalades. There was going to be 2 person each Escalade. We were going to take them, and they said no, no, no. They all want to be on the separate cars, and then one last thing, they all want to be in Rolls Royces. So I said to myself, an hour before they're ready to land, I was like, I had to scramble, and my guys were like, "This is a crazy request. They should have told us ahead of time." And I said, "Listen, when you're dealing with clients like this, I don't care if it's an hour or 10 minutes. If this is what they want, this is what we're going to deliver." So I took my vehicles and drove them up, and then I actually was fortunate enough to know the general manager at Brayman, and I asked him if I could borrow 3 vehicles so we could have 6 cars. We ended up having 6 cars at the hangar. They departed the jet. They got on the Rolls Royces. We drove them to the breakers, and then I thought that was it. I was like, fantastic. High five my guys. We did a fantastic job. We gave them what they wanted. But then when they were exiting the vehicles, they said, "Listen, we need you to help us with some things." So I'm like, "Sure, anything I can help you with." And they said, "We want to go shopping." So I said, "Okay, yeah, Worth Avenue's right down the street. I'm sure the breakers, take you." And they said, "No, no, no. We want you to take us, and we want to shop in private." So at first I didn't really understand what that meant. And basically what they wanted to do was they gave me a list of stores that they wanted me to call and have the stores closed and ready for them. So when we drove them in the Rolls Royce, they could go in, go shopping in private by themselves. At first I was a little taken back because this was something I've never done before. I've never called the store and said, "Hey, can you close the store and kick out all the people? And I have some guests coming and they want to do a little shopping."
And that's a really good area too for people that are listening that don't know. That's a very high wealth area to begin with. So it's
exactly. And we talked to them, and to their credit, all the store owners were incredibly gracious. They said, "Give us 45 minutes. We don't want to rush anyone out. We'll lock the doors." So long story short, we got everyone in the vehicles. We brought them to, I think, 4 stores, and we had an enormous amount of bags that we fit in the cars, where all the back seats were full, the trunks were full, the whole cars were full. And just confidentially, I went to the store shop owners and asked them, I go, how did everything go? And their smiles were like 10 feet wide.
Well, I mean, that's the point of closing the store, right? They're going to make up their money, right?
Yeah, with things. And then what that did was that, kind of, rang a bell in my head. And I said, you know what? People like this want things easy, and they want to have one touch point where they could fly on the G5 and come here. They could be picked up in our Rolls Royces, brought to the breakers, go shopping, and then handle other aspects. So as we left, the next day they actually called us back again, and they said, "Listen, we need some help with banking." And I was like, "Okay, tell me what you need." And they're like, "Well, we want to open up some bank accounts. We need to transfer some money. We want to do some more shopping. We might buy some real estate." So kind of like one thing led to another, and the light bulb went off in my head. And I said, when you're dealing with these ultra high net worth people, the more services you can have as your entree to help facilitate what their needs and desires are, the better service you're going to give them, the stickier they are going to be as a client, and then the more relationships and partnerships we could develop with companies such as Ferretti or Riva, or hotels, or high-end boutiques and things like that. So that's when we came up with the idea of insurance, handling all that, having partnerships with all exclusive ultra high-end items, whether it's jewelry, cars, boats, yachts, what have you. We even have a partner with an exclusive art dealer that handles art needs. We have banking partnerships. So we tried to have it that if any client needs anything in the spectrum of wealth that they may desire, we'll have that service available for them.
But in the insurance business, you have to have money, right? Like you have to have money to set up an insurance.
Correct.
I mean, you can't just say
the capital.
Right. Exactly. Correct. Yeah. So does that take a significant investment, or is there kind of a loophole around?
It depends on how you set it up, which is interesting. I'm a big believer of deferring risk, and basically what that means is I don't want to be the one issuing the insurance myself.
That's what I was asking. Yeah. So
what I'd rather do is I'd rather partner with the high echelons of companies like AIG or Chubb or Hub International or ACE or Fireman's, and I put together an ultra high end, basically a consortium of insurance carriers will allow me to be the facilitator to then have them write the insurance, and then they take on all the risk. Because I'm a big believer in handing off risk, because I've seen a lot of companies go out of business where they got greedy, they wanted to make more profits, they wanted to be the ones actually insuring the real estate, the property, whatever it may be,
right.
And then we get a hurricane or there's a major catastrophe.
And they eat it. I mean,
they're wiped out.
So that's exactly what I'm saying. So when you're talking about kind of expanding these verticals, you're doing so almost like you're the lending tree of ultra high net worth when it comes to, right? Like, so you're kind of taking in the information and then you're not publicly putting it out there, but you're finding kind of the right fit based on your contacts. And is your firm then staying, though, the point of contact for that policy?
100%, because we're not only doing the policies for them, we're basically assisting them with their lifestyle. So for another example, we deal with a lot of international clients, whether from Venezuela, Russia, what have you, and they'll come to us and they'll say, listen, we want to buy a condominium, we need 4 vehicles, we need this, we need that, and a lot of these things we may not make direct profit on. So if I sell 4 Mercedes for, a Russian client that we have, I don't make any money on that, but he comes to me for all his needs, and that's what's important to me. So if he needs to fly to California at the last minute, I'll have the jet ready. If he needs to charter a beautiful Ferretti 86-foot yacht, I'll make one phone call to Jessica, and the yacht will be ready. Things like that, catering to their needs. We found that we've gotten so much back, so much referrals, because one of the things we don't do is we don't advertise. We never advertise.
Right. Well, you get the wrong people when you advertise, right?
Right. Exactly. And we found that going above and beyond servicing our client and giving them a unique experience is what sets us apart. Mm-hmm. And another example I could give is a lot of times, clients or guys that are prospecting for clients will take them golfing per se, and they'll go to Lagore, so maybe they'll go to Doral, the Blue Monster, what have you, and they play around the golf, and that's all great. For me, that's not enough. I need to create an experience that'll last them a lifetime, that they'll always remember. So what I'll do is I'll call one of my friends who's a top 10 ranked golfer in the world who lives in Orlando, and I'll say, listen, I'll give you $10,000 if you come down and play around the golf with these 3 guys. And we'll go to, Miami Beach Golf Course. We've done this one time and I didn't say anything. I kind of kept it on the down low. And all of a sudden, they see him, the famous golfer, they're all freaking out and going crazy. And I said, oh, yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you, he's going to be in your foursome. And their mouths just like dropped.
So it's overachieved. Like it's almost under promising, but the promise is still high to begin with, and then just blowing that out of the box even more.
I think the key is to create a unique experience for someone, an experience that they'll always remember, whether it's just them, whether it's them and their wife, whether it's them and their child, things like that. Those are real connection points that we found, that when we do those experiences and they're over the top, they tell all their friends, they brag to all their family, and then we have other people calling us and say, hey, I heard that you did this with Joe. How do I become a part of this? And I said, all right, let's go to lunch. We'll sit down. We'll see what exposures you may have. We'll see what companies I have that could help you, and then we'll put together a plan. And I'm a big believer in giving first. We call it basically making deposits first before you ask for withdrawals. And a lot of guys don't have maybe the guts or the wherewithal.
Well, they're afraid, right? Because they may never get the withdrawal back.
Whereas me, I'm willing to take chances and I'm willing to gamble, because my whole life has been a gamble. And if I'd done things the traditional way, I'd probably be in a traditional position right now, versus doing things untraditional and doing things where you break the rules, not breaking the law, but breaking the typical rules, and then giving people those experiences. Then they come back to me and they say, hey, we want to have a lasting relationship with you.
So let's talk about deferring risk, and in the same context of what we were just talking about. You said, you make the deposits first and you ask for the withdrawals later. Well, Now you're in a position to be able to do that. I mean, most people in their startup phases can't do that to the same extent that you can afford to give away a free private jet ride to someone with the hope that that relationship is going to fortify and much more will come from it.
Right.
So can you speak a little bit about how you kind of deferred that risk or kind of looked at risk in the earlier stages versus now?
Yeah, I'll give you a really interesting example. We own a place at Canyon Ranch, and we were there over the past weekend. And we were going to the beach, and we're getting ready to get our chair set up, the towels and so forth. They do the whole spa experience on the beach. And normally we go, and, the gentlemen are there in the little hut, and they grab their 2 towels, and they walk you to the chairs. And it's like a 15-minute experience just to get your chair set up, which is traditionally what happens. We were there the other day, and there was this young boy. He must have been maybe 20 years old, and he saw us right away. He introduced himself, shook his hand to us, and said, listen, where do you want to sit? Pointed out where you want to sit. He grabbed 4 towels, and he literally went from the hut where the towels were to the chair and sprinted. He ran like full speed as if he was doing a 40-yard dash. And I was looking at my girlfriend, and I was just dumbfounded. I was like, wow, this is like incredible. I'm like, no one's ever run to the chair to set it up. So while we were walking to the chair to sit down and lay out in the sun and have our pina coladas, He was already at the chair, already had the towel set up, already had everything ready to go, and was standing there at attention and saying, "Mr. Spagnuolo, is there anything else I could get you?" And I was just blown away. So I reached in my pocket. I gave him $100 bill, and I said, "Listen, man, you're gonna go places someday. You just keep doing what you're doing, because we've been here 100 times to this beach, and no one's ever run to the chair." So the example, the microcosm of that is, even if you had nothing, and this kid, you could see didn't come from miraculous means by any chance, but what he did was he made an effort that no one else made, and it didn't cost him any money. The sprint from the hut to the chair, anybody could have done, but everybody else was too lazy to do that because they wanted to take the traditional steps, and they wanted to be like everyone else and just walk there gingerly, let us wait in the hot sun while we're melting, put the chairs, and let this 20-minute process go on. Whereas this young gentleman physically sprinted to the chair and said, "Listen, I'm going to give you a different experience, and not one that's going to impress you with money or financial means."
He didn't have to spend money.
Exactly. But you could see it in his heart, and you could see it in his emotion and his desire to please us. So when I was growing up and I didn't have the financial means that I had now, I had to take that same approach. I couldn't just do the traditional things that everybody else was doing to try to aggregate the sale or try to aggregate the client. I had to sprint. I had to run. I had to make sure instead of 4 towels, I had 8 towels. I would do things that didn't necessarily involve financial means, but they involved your heart. And then people see that. People see when you're giving 120%. Because what I found is most people in life give 80%. And that's the truth of it.
No, I think you're being generous. 80%. They give like 40%.
40%.
Good people give 70,
Yeah.
80%, and then great people,
Exactly.
really try to go for
And
100.
I think that's what the differentiator is. So I don't care if you're on food stamps. I don't care if you're on government welfare. It really doesn't matter. What matters is where your heart is and how much effort are you willing to put in above and beyond what's traditional and standard for whatever endeavor you may be. You may be working at the supermarket bagging groceries, and there's been times where I've had guys bag my groceries with triple bags, make sure everything's packed perfect, make sure everything wouldn't spill in the car, walked me out, made sure everything was in the car. It just went so far above and beyond what was necessary. And then I would give them a tip to commensurate that. And I would talk to them and I would say, "Listen, you have something special here. You have the right mind frame. You have the right mentality." Because everyone thinks business is making decisions and executing and working hard, having a fancy office. And that's really has nothing to do with it. It's all mental. It's all in your head. It's all preparing mentally and attracting what you really want in life and conditioning your mind to prepare yourself to have the universe bring that to you. And when guys sprint to go to a chair to get towels ready, or they pack their bags in a certain way, or they do things that are extraordinary, those are the people that are the entrepreneurs that will eventually become extraordinary.
So I love how you use the word extraordinary, because I was just going to talk about that for a second. What you're describing here is everything we strive for at Secret Entourage, which is we have ordinary people are going to get ordinary results, right? And having ordinary actions will lead you to ordinary results. And extraordinary doesn't have to be expensive. I think people misunderstand that. They associate something extraordinary as being lavish or extravagant, when really extraordinary is simply taking an extra step over what others deem to be ordinary in nature to what they expect.
Exactly.
So being in this mind frame or in this mindset very early on, I guess that's helped you a lot. And I think I recognize some of these things in other people as well when I see them, similar to what you said, even bagging groceries, as simple as that is.
Exactly.
It's such an easy thing to mess up and make everyone's life hell by the time they get home. Their eggs are broken, their food spilled.
Of the guys that work in the supermarket actually do an extraordinary job.
And because they don't see value in what they do, right? They don't believe that it's just a job. It doesn't matter. Like tomorrow they're not going to be doing this. They don't realize that this job is facilitating kind of a way of life for someone else. So they are that middle ground. They can either make or break someone's day because they don't see enough value in themselves, that they believe that it's just a job for the moment.
Exactly.
That's something that's helped you succeed tremendously in life, where I know we talked last time about some of these other ventures and just doing an incredible job regardless of what you do in life. Today, when you kind of look at the future, I know you're doing very well for yourself. You have all of these things in the entrepreneurial realm. You're now entering the technology space, but still staying within the realm of what you do best.
Right.
And I know that Illuminati Trust by itself, like the name, would throw off people, which is really funny, right? I've actually had people like email me and they're like, "Illuminati, this guy is like, he's like Jay-Z's like cousin or something."
That's actually another cute story. Again, I can't really even take credit for that. What happened was my financial advisors came to me and they said, "Listen, you have these 37 companies. They're all separate entities. We need to basically form an umbrella company where we could put all those holdings onto one distinct LLC. I didn't think this was going to be that big of a deal. And they said, well, what do you want to call it? And I said, I don't care. You guys could pick the name. It's not a big deal. It's irrelevant. It's not going to be a name of any company. It's just going to be a holding company. And they said, well, what do you always try to convey to your customers, to your partners, to your business associates, to the people you interact with? And I told them that I always try to illume trust, because I think trust is very important. If you're going to do business with someone, they have to have a certain level of trust, or they're not going to want to work with you. So at first we were just going to call it Illume Trust, and then that didn't sound too good. And then luckily for me, I went to a Catholic high school, and instead of learning a normal language like French or Spanish or German, we learned Latin. Well, no one speaks Latin, so it didn't really help me too much in life, except for the fact that in Latin, the word Illuminati means to illume. So when I came up with that, I said, wow, what a great name, to illuminate trust. So we'll call it Illuminati Trust. And it was just something that happened by accident. It happened within a matter of minutes, and I never thought anything of it. And then it kind of just took on a life of its own, and it kind of became a natural branding, basically, for what I do. So on accident, it worked out to be a big positive, where when we were doing it, we never anticipated it, getting any attention or having any stickiness or staying in people's minds or anything like that.
Well, I think it's come a long way, and I think you've come a long way. I mean, seeing that you were beaten up by The Rock early on, people still share that story with me. And for those of you that missed it, definitely check it out in our previous video. I want to thank you for taking the time to kind of catch up with us today and share a little bit more about how the growth of Illuminati Trust has kind of come to date. And I'm really excited of things to come. So definitely have you on the show again, as you progress, because you keep progressing faster than all of us. I mean, every time I'm next to you, man, every time I'm next to you, I feel poor. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. There's very few people, for people watching, who feel this way, but I completely feel like crap. Every time I get next to this guy, it's like, oh, I got a new Ferrari. Oh, it's this white thing. And I'm like, I didn't even think they were out yet. It's like, they're not. I have an in with this guy and this other guy. Even took me to a Rolls-Royce event. It was incredible. We had a really good time. Yeah, like racing.
That was actually the first time ever that Rolls-Royce allowed their fleet of vehicles on a racetrack to drive. Because Rolls-Royce, when you think of it, isn't a traditional sports car or race car. So for them to allow us to put the cars on the track, I think we had something like $15 million worth of brand new vehicles. That was, like I said, another example of an over-the-top experience where people still talk about today, saying, wow, we had steak and lobster for lunch. We drove every Rolls-Royce that they make, and then we went on the racetrack and we were doing quarter-mile drag runs. And
no, it was incredible. And the best part was that I was just hanging out, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And you're like, hey, you want to go racing Rolls-Royce tomorrow? I'm like, what? What are we doing this? And I was like, yeah, what the hell? And you only live once, right?
Yeah, and ironically, we generated so much business for that. And the beauty of it was there was absolutely no business aspect of the entire event. It was just a social event. It was a way I wanted to give back to my friends, the people I know. And I just wanted everyone to have a good time, let off some steam. Everyone's under a lot of stress. And I felt by giving, again, it came back to get that withdrawal where people then came to me after the event and said, listen, how do we work together? What can we do? What events can we put on? What could I do with insurance with you? What could I do with my private jet travel? How could you help me now? And I thought that was really neat. And it was a perfect example of how when you give to the universe tends to give back.
Always, right?
Always.
So thank you again for being here with us.
Grateful.
And we'll see you next time.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you, guys.